God is just as discriminatory, if you will, here as I was when I married my wife rather than anybody else. Did that mean that I hated other women or something like that? Or
something along the lines of war and maybe not exactly war, but we read in the Bible that God chose the nation of Israel. That essentially means that God chose Israel and he didn't choose the other nations. Now, obviously, that's not racism, but it seems as though God is choosing one ethnic group over the others. Is God
Yeah.
discriminating here uh, by choosing Israel over other nations?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, God is just as discriminatory, if you will, here as I was when I married my wife rather than anybody else. Did that mean that I hated other women or something like that, or that I was going to mistreat them? No, I'm just aligning myself with my beloved wife. And so that is what you see God doing. And why is he aligning himself with Israel? He is choosing a nation of Israel, not because he has no concern about other nations. Remember the promise to Abraham that through you and your offspring, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. So God is very much interested in the nations, but he has to begin somewhere. And he begins with Abraham. He begins with Israel, and he works his way outward. So God is allowing his purposes to unfold. But God, we see the heart of God for the nations throughout the Old Testament, that God has a plan to incorporate the nations into the fulfillment of his purposes. So God is singling out Israel, beginning with them, but he's beginning with the particular, but moving toward the universal. That has been his plan all along. So those who say that there is something discriminatory, well, keep in mind too that God says that just as he brought judgment on the Canaanites, just as the land vomited them out, the land was going to vomit out the Israelites too if they carried on in the practices of the Canaanites, which is what happened. You have exile for the northern kingdom in 722 BC, and then you have the southern kingdom of Judah, that there is exile in the 6th century BC. So this is, God brings judgment, God brings exile. In fact, a lot of that language of God is going to destroy, when he talks about destroying the people of Israel in the book of Deuteronomy, he's going to bring judgment upon them. It looks like he's going to wipe them out, but all he means by that is exile. And so that's an act of, in a sense, utter destruction. That is, he incapacitates Israel's political, social, economic, structures. But it doesn't mean that the nation itself had been wiped off the map. So those are the sorts of things that we need to keep in mind as we look at the bigger picture of the Old Testament. There's a lot more to consider than maybe focusing on this or that verse. When you look at the bigger picture and try to piece things together, there are far more complexities than some of the simplistic dismissals that people have of the Old Testament.
And like you said, I think a lot of people overlook the punishment that God gave Israelites. And they also overlook that the grace period that God gave with the other nations, like you said, Sodom and Gomorrah, God was willing to forgive them even if there were just five righteous people in the city, a city of 1,000 people, and it's just five. God was willing to forgive them. And even Egypt, Nineveh, when they repented, God did forgive them. And so I think a lot of people do overlook that.
Do you feel unequipped to talk to your friends about Jesus? Do you want to know more about God and His Word? Are you struggling to kill sin? And do you want to pursue holiness in your life? Then this channel is for you.